everybody, to Max's Monday podcast. I'm your host, Maximus Gomez. So, let me just start off by saying I apologize for not having an episode out last week. That was a little bit different. I wanted a break. I'd been doing the show 5 weeks in a row. I was just like, I'll take a break. I wasn't really feeling it that day. I had a couple of different things going on that day. Pretty busy for me. Um, no, as you can see, I obviously don't have a guest today. Which is actually kind of foretelling, kind of what I wanted to talk about for the first part of today's episode was just, I think I'm going to switch up the format of the show a little bit. Having guests is really cool and really awesome, and I love speaking with people and getting to know them and them talking about whatever, whatever they want to talk about, mostly about what's going on with their lives. But I just, I had a conversation with one of my friends um, recently, 2 weeks ago, and she, maybe even sooner than that, and she just, just we were just having a conversation, and she just said, um, how did she put it? She was like, um, hey, like of course everybody that is going to love your podcast because they know what you're talking about. She's like, but how do you expect somebody at like the Midwest to give two shits about what you're talking about? Um, it was a great point, and that's not a knock on any of my guests. I've loved every guest that I have on, and I love talking to them. But it, just great brings up a great point about maybe just changing the format of the podcast a little bit, and maybe having it a little bit more topical, or having like maybe I'll have like a specific talk about thing to talk about that week, or just have a couple headlines, make it maybe a little bit more political. I am a political scientist. That's my major, at least. I don't like I had a conversation with somebody the other day. I don't like saying that, and it sounds kind of like that's what I am. And politics is a huge part of my life, and honestly, it's a huge part of everybody's life. Everybody has some sort of politics, whether it's work politics or politics, or in schools, businesses, and there's politics everywhere. So maybe structuring conversations more around that. But anyway, so she had mentioned that, like, how do you expect people to care, or, give a shit about what you're making a little bit more interesting. And like, I had mentioned this in the very beginning of when I first started the podcast, of like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't care about viewership, or I don't care about subscriptions and all of that. But it'd be really cool if I did get a bigger audience, and more people are watching the show, and if more people are going to watch the show, then I want to make it a little bit more interesting, um, and just try something different. And so I think over the course of the next month or so, I'm gonna be trying out different things. Excuse me. To everybody who wants to obviously be a guest on the show, don't worry, I'm not getting rid of guests. I just think I'm going to do it not every week. Maybe I'll do it every other week. Maybe I'll do it once a month. Because I still want to have people on and get their opinions on different stuff. But and the other thing too, I was thinking about was just like, I kind of want to make this show my show a little bit more, and I feel like I wasn't really doing that with having other people on. It was more I was asking them about them, and I thought, well, I don't really get to talk a whole lot about me, or like some things that maybe I would want to talk about. Um, which again isn't a knock on my guests, because it's what I wanted. Was I wanted to have guests on and talk to them, but just trying different things, and seeing how that goes, and see how you guys respond to that, obviously, and see how I respond to it, quite honestly, because I might do something like, I don't want to search up things to talk about, or do research and stuff I want to talk about. So I'll just have somebody on, and we'll just have a conversation. Um, but that's that, and that's here or there. So, yeah, so don't worry, I'll have guests. I definitely have a lot of people that I still want to have a conversation. Family members, friends, all kinds of different people that I want to have on the show. But again, maybe structuring it differently. Maybe not the conversation be so laxy daisy. Maybe actually have an actual topic. Um, yeah, I didn't really have too much for plan. I was gonna try. Maybe we'll do a topical thing today. I wanted to talk a little bit about cancel culture. Um, it's a huge subject right now. It's been for a couple years now, past several years. Um, Maybe get into that a little bit. There's a couple stories that I have here that are that I thought was really interesting. Earlier today, I had a really great conversation with my dad about cancel culture, and the effects that it has, and how productive it is, and just kind of how we feel about it. Um, and in that way, that in that particular way that our society's moving in, and some of the couple things, and then respond to some of the stuff because it talks about Gen Z and all that, and I'm getting into um, that whole thing, and because I'm a Gen Z, so I hear that, and you know what? I'll put it this way: kind of kick off the conversation. It's going to get a little bit all over the place, but eventually I'll kind of get into a main thing. But just to share some thoughts on a couple different things. It's like I'm not a very how do I put this? I'm not so prideful of of what I like the adjectives, right? Like I don't really care that I'm Gen Z. Um, I'm mixed. I don't really put a whole lot of weight into that. Um, I'm male. Um, I try my best not to give any power to that whatsoever, or being an American, or coming from a middle class family. I had a great conversation with my dad earlier, and it was just structured around the fact that I told him, I was like, I'm just not proud of those things, in a more sense of like, I, it, I want people when they look at me or when they think about me, not to be like, oh, he's that Mexican guy, or he's that, um, you know, straight dude, or like this or that, or he's that American guy, blah 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 blah, which obviously doesn't happen a whole lot, but just for reference, and be more so about my character. I'm like, oh, he's funny, or he's this, or he's smart, different things about what I think are more true to my character, right? And we get into a really good discussion about um some stuff like that, because life is very different. And I said this to my dad when we were having that talk, and I said, I will acknowledge the fact that um based on your race, based on your gender, based on your religion, your class, like that all plays in a part in the experience that you live, especially in our country, in our society. Um, but I was like, I try my best not to give any power to that, to let that define me or let that classify me in any way, for better or for worse. Really, I know I might get some flack for like, why aren't you more proud to be a minority, or this or that. I'm not religious. I don't put a lot of pride in, I can't put any pride into that. um and then just all kinds of little things that I think sometimes we do get a little caught up in. But that's not to say that's just for me, though. I mean, that's only speaking from my experience. um but I do have to recognize that that's really important for other people, and I think that's where we need to start off, right? It's that thing that some comedians talk about. It's like, just because you're offended doesn't mean I have to apologize or that I have to act differently, which is right. Okay, right. You have a point, but it's also like, maybe that's a little different because it's comedy, and I, some people think there's a fine line in comedy. I'm a little bit different. I think that, um, yeah, it's funny. I'm a little different in that way, but um, more sense in just in talking points, and just how we talk to each other in our society is, it's really important that we are a little bit more conscious about how people feel, or how we make them feel. A big part of me is like, I've always wanted to be inclusive, right? And that word means, it has different meanings for everybody, or even how it's interpreted, or even how it's applied, right? What does it mean to be inclusive, right? For me, it's like, well, I'm inclusive. It's like, I don't judge people on their, I'm almost just about anything other than their actions, or how they carry themselves, or carry themselves around certain people, right? It's like, the people that I like to be around, I love them because they are who they are, you know, and they're proud about that. And so I'm like, hey, I'm love that you're proud of that. I'm love that you can look at that, and you have something to be passionate about, to love, to appreciate. And again, I'm just different, in that sense. I try not to, right, and I think that's a big part of why I am so try to be as inclusive as I am. I said, by not telling myself, or acting in a way that these are the characteristics that define me, right, based on my gender, class, race, religion, whatever. I'm like, by not doing that, I'm more open minded in the sense. because it's like, okay, it's like I allow for different thoughts to come in, and different interpretations and different opinions and different trains of thoughts. I think that's a problem that a lot of people have today. It's like very narrow minded, right? And they lack perspective. And that's a big part of me. Um, is I continue to get older is to have more perspective, right? I used to always hear that thing. It's like there's three sides to every story, right? It's what this person said, what the other person said, and then the truth, right? Um, but you're funny when you get into these certain conversations, especially political ones, about truth, right, and facts. Um, and I'll even go as far to say that uh, facts get a little tricky. Um, as someone who is in college, who's gonna you know finish up with his second year of college, who has done some research and has worked on research papers and all that. I guess the more I do all of this research and all this stuff, I realize facts can be construed in such a way that the argument you're trying to make, like people will literally leave out pieces of information because it'll disprove whatever the point they were trying to make. Right. So let's say, okay, I'm trying to make a point about, um, let's say, okay, not necessarily me, but like somebody's trying to make a point. They're like, oh, some bigot or whatever. They're like, oh, immigrants, um, make this country worse, right? Or they're like there's a higher crime rate in immigrant populations or immigrant communities, right? But they'll overlook like information that disprove it or show that immigrants no, or maybe they're not the ones that commit the crimes, but the ones that receive crimes, like they're of violence or or robbery or home invasion or assault, any number of things. So um, it's super weird when you talk about truth and facts and all that other stuff. I try to keep it, um, like I said, I'm just trying not to be as narrow minded. And I think if we were all just a little bit more open minded, we would be a little bit better off. But that's not to say that you're so open minded to the fact that you just allow things just to happen. I'm like, well, you know what? I get why they do that. Well, that's not good. Well, sometimes it's not good enough. Just understanding why sometimes people act or behave a certain way is not good enough. The acknowledgement isn't good enough. It's all right, okay. What are you going to do after? Like, what's the next steps? Right. It's that thing. It's like, okay, you acknowledge that right. It's the first step to solving any issue is to acknowledge that there's an issue. But that's as far as some people go. That was a large criticism that people had with people who would post, support or would support BLM. Right? It's like, okay, great, you have a hashtag in your bio, or you posted something on your story. Great, but like, what active steps are you taking to, you know, stop those things or to fix it? Um, you know, and you get different conversation about that. But some people, um, maybe that's what they can do. You get into different avenues of conversation about what it means to, um, active actions for change, right? To actually be, um, you know, making moves that bring about change to yourself, to your community, um, to the better part of society. So some great conversations that you can get into about that and about what it means to be right. And so much of this stuff is opinionated. Like there isn't a wrong answer. No, don't get me wrong. There is a wrong answer and there is a right answer. But when you really think about it, it's an opinion. It's subjective. It's how you feel about it. Now we can look and totally disagree with somebody, and we definitely should. Um, but some say they're entitled to their opinion, and then that's kind of where we get into cancel culture, right? It's like, in your opinion, like something, it's offensive, it's not offensive, and then you act accordingly to that. And just some things that I have written down here, and big things, big topics of conversation. Dr. Seuss, there was a move to cancel Dr. Seuss. And here's the other thing too: is define cancel, right? And what does that mean? And that means as something different to other people. Me and my father were speaking about it, and he had mentioned that some people do that in a way where they just don't patronize, right? Like they don't give money. All right, they'll just stop supporting them financially, or they won't go to their business, or they'll switch. If it's a business sense, like they just won't give a business. They'll try something else. They'll do something differently, right? Um, so it's like, what does it mean to cancel? For you guys who don't know, and even I'm a little shady about it, but kind of what I've read and seen is Dr. Seuss had from some of his earlier works some really racist shit. Like it's like that's the other thing too is people. Well, what's wrong with Dr. Seuss? I'm like, did you not see what he drew and what he wrote? Like super racist. Like the caricatures. I cannot say that word right now, but these images that depicted black people, super racist, the stereotypical, all this, how they were drawn, what they were saying. This talks to them being animals and references to slavery, and maybe that's okay, and justifying slavery in a sense, which is totally wrong. And I can't agree with you more, right? That's horrendous. What does that mean to cancel? Some people take that to all of his work should be stripped. You shouldn't read any of it. And then, of course, you get into the conversation of the artist and the art, which is a huge controversial topic. I don't really know how I feel about it. I think it depends on the artist and it depends on the art. Because here's the thing, at least for me, from about Dr. Seuss, it's like, okay, he had that work and that's totally awful. But, he also had, book that talks about accepting differences. What is it? One fish, blue fish, red fish. What is it? I don't know. That's the other thing too is Dr. Seuss does not play any major part in my life anymore. When I was younger, I used to obviously read the books, and Green Eggs and Ham was a fan favorite. But I, I'll put it this way: I think I can do without Dr. Seuss. Like some of the people I was seeing there, and they were like, "How could you cancel Dr. Seuss? He had such a huge effect on my life." I'm like, "Did he stop you from doing drugs? Did he get you out of prison? I don't understand that you feel so strongly about Dr. Seuss that you just kind of like, you know what? Maybe what he did isn't good. And maybe there's some better options." But I could also see how some people could be like, it doesn't matter that much. Like, okay, we just won't read those books, which, to be honest, we didn't even know existed, right? And like 80% of the people talking about it didn't know they existed until right now, until a couple of weeks ago. So no, so I like I said, Dr. Seuss isn't that major of a role for me to feel strongly about it. Like if some kid came up to me and was like, "Can you read me this Dr. Seuss book?" I probably wouldn't go like, "No, because he's racist and blah 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 and this and that." But maybe read him the book, and then maybe here's the thing about education and what I believe when it comes to child development. I think when it's a whole other topic of conversation, but I think it's important to talk about. Is when we're having like the way we talk to kids and the way we treat kids is like, especially parents. I think it's horrendous. It's like you don't value them as human beings and their thoughts and their feelings, and disrespect their level of intelligence. And like, I think you should start. Here's the thing: kids are like sponges, right? Their brains are still growing, right? And they're getting the little creases in their brain and all of those stuff. Their brain's forming and it's growing. It's just taking in all this information. So start them young. Don't ever go to a child and say they're too young to understand. We'll start planting those seeds, and so that when they're older, that's one thing that I always did appreciate about my parents is there would be many times when we'd be sitting there having dinner, and they would just we would just have conversations. I remember we did it when we talked about gay marriage when I was younger. That was a big part of it. Obviously, I have family members that are gay. One of my best friends growing up, she had two moms. So there's definitely things there, and just learning to accept it, and asking us how we feel, and not making us feel like we're dumb or that we wouldn't be able to understand it. They had conversations with us. And so anyway, so going back to what I was talking about with Dr. Seuss, if you came to me, read the book, okay, read the book. Hey, great. Now let's talk about it. Now you can do a different sort of lesson. So whatever the lesson the book teaches, right? Which, which is, if it's green eggs or ham, I don't know what that teaches. Maybe it's just a fun book they like to read. But then you have a conversation with them. Well, do you know who wrote this? It's Dr. Seuss. And what do you think about Dr. Seuss? Right? Oh, he's fun. He's like, I like his stories. Okay, cool. Like, well, what did you know? Right? Well, maybe, and you just talk about because it gets so muddy, right? And when what we talk about character and intentions and what people like is if they do anything bad, is that it? Can we not accept anything good they did? Um, and you get into conversations about, does the good outweigh the bad? Does the bad outweigh the good? And is it good? Is it bad? I mean, this is something that was written 100 years ago. Should we even really have really strong feelings towards it? I think we should have strong feelings in the fact that it evokes emotion, like to see something, like it's quite appalling. Like I saw those cartoons that Dr. Seuss that they were talking about, and I was like, whoa, like it was, like it's still like, oh Jesus Christ, like it's still hard to look at. It's not something you just look at and you're like, yeah, no, this is cool. Yeah, I can get down with this. No, 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 no. It's obviously invokes some sort of, if you're normal and you're a decent human being, it'll spark some sort of provoke some sort of strong emotions about it. Uh, and then you'd have a child talk with your child, and then you can get into different, more adult conversations. And I hate that adult conversations. No, these are conversations that I think if kids had from a younger age, they would be better prepared to have them in the future. Because regardless of whether or not they like it, conversations like these come up. It's the things you're never supposed to talk about, like religion and politics. Well, we always fucking talk about it, so we might as well learn the talking points and start to understand how we really feel about it. And I think we would all be better off for it. Is really sitting down with the younger generations and having conversations with them and exploring how they feel. If we really want to get rid of all these things of racism and bigotry and ignorance, it's got to start somewhere, and I think it starts with the next generations. So it's just sitting down with them and having conversations, and telling them it's kind of idea like I talked about earlier. There's not a right answer, there's not a wrong answer, but there definitely is a right and wrong answer. Right? Like, don't be racist. Don't judge people on their skin color, on their gender, on their class, on their ethnicity, religion. You base that on their character, right? Um, and I think it would just make everybody more understanding. Like I said, opening up avenues of perspectives, a recurring thing that you kind of see here, perspectives and getting a different point of view. Uh, yeah, and then it also breaks the whole thing about um, kids are too young to understand. I don't think that's true. Um, they don't understand it because they're not taught and they're not having those conversations. And you know what? I will recognize the fact that I was fortunate enough to have parents um, that were intelligent enough and that were active participants and watched the news and closely studied and felt the way they did. And my parents are pretty liberal and uh, have instilled very good morals and values into me to show me, right and wrong. Like I said, there's not a wrong answer, there's not a right answer, but there definitely is a right or wrong answer. So, so that's Dr. Seuss. So read it, don't read it, and then if you are read it, use it because no adults reading Dr. Seuss. It's not. If you're an adult and you're still reading Dr. Seuss, like you know, like get it together. You know what I mean. Go, come on, really? Like, okay. But definitely if you're reading it to somebody, your child, a younger sibling, whatever, allow it be a talking point for other avenues of conversation. And maybe the kids may necessarily really find it exciting or whatever, but again, you're sowing the seeds. of the revolution. The revolution is coming, folks. You guys, you just got to be ready for it. You got to see it coming. All right, moving on. Next thing that I had under the terms of council culture was Mr. Potato Head. Again, just based off the research and stuff that I saw, was they were going to remove the Mr., right? And he was going to be non-binary, gender non-binary, which again, I used to have little Mr. Potato Head figures, but I'm pretty sure it was a Darth Vader one. Total Star Wars nerd, by the way. Sorry, I apologize about that. At some point, I will definitely have a conversation about Star Wars. All-time favorite for mine. And please, for the love of God, I'm gonna just shout that Ollie, watch the goddamn Star Wars. Or if you haven't seen Star Wars, please go watch it. It's amazing. I love it. I hope you would like it too. If you don't like it, that's cool. But I'm just saying, but anyways, yeah. So again, I don't have a Mr. Potato Head. I don't know a lot of people that do have a Mr. Potato Head. So why the hell do grown folks care so goddamn much about him being non-binary? What oh, man, it's all part of their agenda. To blah 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 blah. I'm like, who cares? Really, honestly, I don't think it's that big of a cultural. Like, it's not a seismic activity to me. I don't know. Yeah, so I understand the point of representation. Like, okay, yeah, this is more so for the people that are against it, but it's a little bit too for the people that are super supportive of it. I'm like, it doesn't matter, right? I think, personally, again, I'm not somebody who identifies as non-binary or I am the typical, what is it, cis, right? Cis straight male. So I could be totally wrong, and I apologize if I am. That might have come off a bit insensitive, and I totally did not mean it to be. Somebody who doesn't identify in that way, gender wise or in sexuality, and Mr. Potato Head, like again, like I thought we stopped playing with Mr. Potato Heads in the 80s, and they were more just kind of like obviously Toy Story. He was. Can you even say fan favorite? Does anybody really remember Mr. Potato Head? Does anybody really remember Toy Story? I didn't even watch the last one. Maybe I should. The Spoon? I don't even know what the hell that was all about. I probably should watch it. I did enjoy the first three, but if you're super mad about it, why? And if you're getting into arguments of people who oppose it, why? It's Mr. Potato Head. I guess you would just call him Potato Head, which again, what the fuck does it matter? I don't see the problem. Okay, like that's what the people should look at that and go, okay, oh cool, right? Well, people you're so mad about it, and I'm like, why are you mad? Or do you have insecurities? Are you compensating for something? Like what's the big it's a big issue here, guy. So I have no idea. So Mr. Potato Head. So do I support it? Sure. I don't see a reason why I would oppose it. I don't feel strongly about Mr. Potato Head that if they changed it to Potato Head and he was non-binary, gender non-binary, that I would feel strongly about it. Either way. How about this? How about we just get rid of that whole thing as an entire brand? Who the fuck makes money? Who is making the money off of Mr. Potato? Who produces Mr. Potato Head? Like, who owns that intellectual property? I've fucking no idea. So that's that. And then kind of the last thing I want to talk about. This is a big one. I'm already kind of running under 30 minutes, so this one might be a little rushed. I spent a lot of time on Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head. But so in Oklahoma, there was a high school basketball women's game, right? The girls basketball, however you want to put that. And the team was, I I think was majority, if not all, were African American girls, and they kneeled during the national anthem. And the announcer, who was, I guess, Oklahoma, because there is shit to do in Oklahoma. No offense if you're from Oklahoma, but let's be honest. Uh, um, they have like a national broadcast, not a national broadcast, like a state broadcast, like it's the local TV there of the high school games, and obviously, I guess it's a big tournament. And the announcer didn't know his mic; he had a hot mic sitting right next to him, and he called them effing and words, which is wow, right? It's like you hear that word, and again, like it just evokes strong. It's just like whoa, like it's kind of a shock. Some people might not get it big as a shock. It's just like whoa, like, where did that come from? Holy shit! Well, I mean, you know where it comes from, but um, and then he said he hopes they loses and blah 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 blah. And then obviously, he has a hot mic, so he got a bunch of shit for it. And then in this movie, kind of get about the canceling part. This part of the, the topic, the conversation, and he was no longer allowed to announce, obviously, and people were trying to cancel him. And I guess he owns like a locksmith business. I was reading about it. It's from the New York Post article. So if you want to go and look up the details, maybe I'll shoot a link in the description. If not, just go look it up. You can find it. Just put announcer New York Post, like announcer racist. It'll pop up. And I guess he owns like a locksmith, and some people are trying to, obviously make or get people not to go there or not shop there, and cancel his business and different stuff like that. And my dad, you just asking a question. He does that. He doesn't necessarily give any way of how he feels about it. He just asks questions so we can have time, conversation about it. My dad likes to play a little bit of devil's advocate. Not so much that like I said, he doesn't give either way about how he feels. He just wants to have a conversation about it, see how like me or my brother feel about it. And which I get a lot from him too. I do. I also like to play that role sometimes. Um, and he just asked. He was like, "Does that right? Just canceling him? Is it productive? Does it do anything? Does it actually lead to change?" Um, and he was, we talked about it a little, and he was like, just kind of an idea. He was like, some people would say that they wouldn't agree that just because he says those words that he should be stripped of his financial stability. Like you should just tear his part of life apart and this and that. Again, that's not how my dad feels. I don't want you guys to cancel my dad. He's just he's like first time on another perspective, so we can have a conversation about it. And I just kind of put it this way. I mean, it's just something that I've said many times to people. Any of us had conversations about race and racial inequalities and all that. If this country wants to see real change and wants to see us move in a direction away from racism and where we actually see actual real equality, it's not going to happen through policy. It's not going to happen through laws. It's not going to happen because some guy signed a bill or some person made a speech or this person did that and blah 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 blah. It happens through public consciousness. It starts at the root, being educated, right? You got to make it more broad, not so specific, right? Because this is something I said to my dad. I said being racist isn't illegal, right? And I don't think it should be. I believe in free speech. However, how I believe in free speech, I do not believe free of consequence. Say whatever you want. You do it, but don't be surprised if you receive negative backlash, or if people don't want to go to your store anymore, or if people actively look to strip you from your positions of power because certain ideologies and certain things just do not belong to people who are in positions of power, because that means you can use those ideologies to oppress those people, and that's just wrong. Uh, so yeah, is it effective? Is it good? Yes, I think it does, and I'll tell you why. Because for too long we've been almost passive about it, almost like um it's kind of like, oh, we just kind of let it go, of like, oh, we just won't go to that business anymore, blah 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 blah. And I think by actively seeking that out, that we can finally outroot it and like show, look, those types of ideas, those types of beliefs, those types of values are not welcomed here in our communities, are not welcomed here in this country. I have seen and heard a lot of ignorant shit, and it is frustrating. Now, now look, you can give me a bunch of shit, but I, I do a lot of things for comedy, and comedy is a whole other topic. And sometimes jokes aren't funny, and certain things aren't funny, which whole other conversation. However, I nothing infuriates me more than when people say some very ignorant shit and they mean that 100%. I'm like, you couldn't take the 5 minutes to look up anything, do any sort of research, and realize that you're fucking wrong. Or it's just ignorant. And again, it gets into the whole conversation that there's not a right answer, there's not a wrong answer. But god damn it, there's a wrong answer. And the choice to be ignorant and the choice to, you know, and then that's it. I totally forgot to mention this in the story. He blames it, he says it and he gets caught, right? And he wouldn't apologize if he didn't get caught, but he got caught, so he has to apologize. He blamed it on his diabetes. His diabetes, yeah, low blood sugar is what causes this man to be racist. Um, I don't, I'm not a medical expert, but I don't really see what is it? I don't really, there might be a correlation. Correlation does not equal causation, and I don't think low blood sugar just makes people instinctively racist. So, no, it's awful. I don't know how you look at this. We own this country owned slaves. We we made people 3/5. We counted them 3/5 of a person. Is that does that make sense? We literally devalued human life because of skin color, not because of their you know intelligence, not because of their character, not because of their physical appearance, something they have no control over. And we said, you know what? It's terrible. You are lesser than me. You're I would take a literal pig over you. I value a pig's life over yours. And that's fucking terrible. And if you don't understand that and you don't take those concepts and apply it throughout history and show where we are today and how that incorporates into a systemic racism, you're an idiot. Plain, flat, simple. You're a fucking idiot. I don't care. I really do not care how you feel about it. If you don't believe that systemic racism is a real thing, you gotta go. I don't know where, but you can't stay here. Um, there's just certain, and again, it's the whole idea of being too passive. Look, how the fuck do we ever expect to get away from this, the plague that is racism, if we allow people to continue to spew racist shit? Just be flat out ignorant, racist pieces of shit. And to any minority, and that goes to all people, right? We need to value human life. And that all goes back to the whole thing that I was saying earlier about how I carry myself and how I view myself. I don't put power to certain things. I don't put power to the fact that I'm male. I don't put power to the fact that I'm white. I don't put power to the fact that I'm Hispanic, or that I'm not religious, or that I'm American, or I'm part of the middle class, right? Because if you're gonna think I'm a piece of shit, if you're gonna think I'm an asshole, it's because I am one, not because you have these predisposed ideas. Just because you look at me, or you see my name, or you see the way I dress, or who I hang out with, you're gonna look at me and you're gonna have to judge me for my character. Um, And it's something I really brought up to my dad. How do you have the energy to be racist? I feel like being racist is so draining. Like you just have all this hate. And you just hate, 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 hate. And that just sounds exhausting. I have never been able to hold a grudge for more than 20 minutes. These motherfuckers have been racist for like 500 years. And just don't understand. And they just choose. They choose. That's the other thing. Is they choose to ignore or they choose to continue to be ignorant. It's sad. And you know, I'm sorry if I come off as insensitive or I'm not taking it seriously enough. But god damn it. That is fucking rough. And it leads into other things. I don't some stupid motherfuckers. They'll be talking about like, oh, the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights. A state's right to do what, jackass? To own slaves. I don't understand. What do you mean states' rights? What the fuck are you talking about? The war was over the fact that people they weren't considered people to even have rights in the first place. What the fuck are you talking about? It's just dumb. I just, See, I'm exhausted. Anyway, so it goes the whole thing. It's like, how do you have the energy to hate people? You haven't even fucking met them. You don't know who they are. Now, if somebody went up to you and they were just being a dick, right? Or they were just not being cool, yeah, of course. You judge them on their character. I don't like somebody because they're this or that, because they're a woman, or because they're gay, or because blah, blah, blah. I hate them because they're just not good people. And that doesn't inherently come from the fact of this and that. That has nothing to not so much that has nothing to do with. Again, I said earlier that those things do shape who we are and the experiences that we live, and ultimately all that culminates into who we are. However, I like to think that certain personality traits are more natural and are more just kind of tone to who that person is, more so than because they're black, or because they're Muslim, or because they came from a different country. Because as humans, we come all shapes and sizes, dog. We all have different experiences, and some people are just cool as hell, bro. And you can have great conversations with them. You can live with them. You can be friendly with them. You can start a family with them. You can be loving with them. And I like to think that's based more on the individual than it is anything else. So yeah, that dude. I know this whole conversation was supposed to be about cancel culture, and it got kind of a little bit sidetracked. But yeah, no, cancel culture. People complain a lot about it. I wish I had time. I know we're kind of running late. I don't want this to be super fucking long. Probably a lot of people already tuned out at this point, but that's okay. I'm already running on to 45 minutes. Goddamn. I'm just gonna get about the whole Eminem thing. So good luck with that. Eminem's a fucking god, literally rap god. So good luck canceling him. But I think there's good aspects of cancel culture, and it just kind of shows the active role that we can play sometimes. Of like look, okay, enough is enough, right? We try to be peaceful about it. We try to be, and to the extent this is still peaceful. We're not killing anybody. Somebody be well, you're taking everything else away from them. You might as well kill them. Well, don't be racist. Don't be ignorant. Don't be a bigot. I feel like it shouldn't be that hard. But obviously here we are. Kind of wrap it up there. I was all over the place today. Again, I'll try to focus in over the next month or so. Structurally differently. We'll see how it goes. But again, thank you everybody for tuning in. And I'm excited to be back doing this. Next week, I don't know. I probably we'll see if I have a guest or not. We'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll have I have no idea. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And then I will definitely catch you guys next week. And again, thank you guys so much for the love and support. And I apologize for last week for not posting. I just really wasn't feeling it. But I'm back this week. So please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week. Deuces.